second video in August, just about. This video is really just one theme, one particular job, and if you're interested in this, then hopefully you'll get something out of it. If you're not, then either switch off now or use this as a cure for insomnia, which I think might work very well. Okay then, some actual boat DIY stuff going on, and I must say, by the way, this is not a DIY channel. I'm not trying to show anybody how to do anything. I'm just saying this is the way that I did it. So comments welcomed. Obviously it's too late for me because I will have already made the mistakes that you're going to spot, but it might save somebody else. So don't copy what I'll do, but I will try and sort of talk through my methodology. But basically, what I want to do in this video is I've got a couple of thru-hulls, one of which is linked up to an old depth transducer which is no longer used, and the other one which is linked up to a seacock which kind of sticks out into the hull a dangerous amount, and it was mentioned in the survey that it would be a good idea to get rid of it. So basically what I want to do is to get rid of those and glass over the holes that were there. That one of them is actually just on the waterline and the other one is significantly under the waterline, so they really are things that you want to get sorted out and do it properly. And I've not really done any glass fibring work for ages. Done a bit of epoxy work before, but not for several years. I think I might have done some glass fibring about 20 odd years ago. But anyway, so let's have a look, see how this goes. So I need to take this thing out where it was leaking around the edges. I could just sort of put a plug on it and fix it up, but it's bad underneath, so this is going to come out completely because I do have another one of these, so this is completely unused. Alright, so I was going to video taking this off because I thought I'd have to scrunch it out with a power tool, but basically just whacked it with a screwdriver and it popped off. So not sure how far the ingress got, but I think there was kind of water coming through here into the threads and then up through, which is what's caused the leak. So the next thing to do is to take this off, and obviously there's two ways of doing this. You either from the inside belt it with a hammer, or two ways. You either belt it with a hammer or you, I can't remember the second way. Oh, I've remembered what the second way is. You unscrew it gently. There you go. Too late now. Right, this might be a little bit dark, but this is the other thru-hull seacock that I want to get rid of, and it's just about on the waterline, and it's where normally there is where I have my sort of shelves and things, and as you can see it kind of sticks through, and although there's really no danger of me actually standing on it, or you know, something could happen, something could fall on it, it could break, and it's not needed, so I'm going to get rid of that one as well. Alright, there we go, so that's the hole right on the waterline, and that's what I took out. So that, all of that lot was inside the boat with nothing on the end, and it was just literally turned off with the handle taken off. So normally if you put a pipe on that you'd double clip it, wouldn't you? So it literally had nothing on it. As I say, there's no danger of being booted, but yeah, I'd be glad to see that hole and that one got rid of. Okay, slightly disappointing. I'm not really doing the fiberglassing today. What I've done here is draw a line 12 centimetres from the hole, because the fiberglassing in this boat is about 1 centimetre thick, and all the guides that I see say to do a chamfer on both sides, inside and out, of about 12 to 1. But that looks, based on the YouTube videos I've seen, that looks an awful lot wider than most of them. And the trouble is, the fiberglass that I've got, which I thought would be wide enough, is kind of only that wide, so it's not going to work. So this is the bigger hole. And I've drawn a circle on the other one. This is smaller, but I've done it about 3 inches, and I don't know, that kind of just looks right to me, and that would be about, well, even that's pushing it a little bit, so I'm not going to do that today. Any comments before I do this? I think 3 inches is plenty, but it's just because that's kind of what looks right. But anyway.
For personal attention by experts in all photographic and audio equipment, see and hear a comprehensive range of both, on show within 100 yards of this cinema. And for individual attention to your black and white or colour processing, Reeves is the name to trust. Reeves are Birmingham service agents for leading manufacturers of equipment, and our outside sales staff are at your service on request. Our own preview theatre is at your disposal.
Well, sorry about that blatant bit of advertising, but to be quite honest, all the same, a YouTube channel seems to be doing at the moment, so I thought, why not? You know, I need a new camera. You've seen the state of me trying to fix my old one, and the camera that I'm using at the moment isn't exactly the highest of quality, so, you know, the sponsorship deals are everything, and the new one, and you saw it there in the video, looks great. No batteries either, just a little sort of windy up thing for... Anyway, right. So, a bit of homework needed to be done, because obviously I was quite surprised at how big the radius was of the fiberglassing I needed to do. So I hit the internet and had a look to see how I should actually be doing this, and found some instructions on epoxy craft, link below in the description, and tried to follow them. And let's see whether that works out or not. And actually, I don't know, because I'm recording this before I've even done it. So, yeah, great success, fantastic. Or, oh, that was a shame, that didn't work at all. Yeah, well, lesson learned. So I don't know which one of those two I'll put in. Anyway, let's see how this goes. Right, so the method I've chosen to do is to follow one from Epoxy Craft on their website, and I'll put a link in the description below to where they are. And different people do this in different ways, but basically, and I've drawn this life size, this is the transducer hole, so this is about 2 inches and is exactly the same as the example, thank goodness, that they use. And this is about 9-10 millimetres, i.e. a centimetre. And what they say to do is to first of all put an epoxy plug, a thin 3mm plug, obviously sand these down and make them sort of epoxy friendly, put a plug in the middle there first, and then put some filler and epoxy that in, and then chamfer back. And this is where I was wrong before, chamfer back 12:1, but 12:1 from here to here isn't 12 centimetres, that's where I was getting it wrong. This is more like 3 millimetres here, so if you actually do a 12:1 from there and a 12:1 from there, that gives you an overall diameter of just over 5 inches. Sorry about messing about with the units, I always do this. So 5 inches is about 12.5 centimetres, which is about what I was expecting. So about 12.5 centimetres altogether, rather than 12 centimetres altogether. Yeah, and that's what they say on the website. And then what you do, and the colours aren't particularly good here, so we've got the pink plug in the middle, and then you fiberglass in from either side. Why you put a plug in? Not quite sure. Most people don't seem to do it. I'm going to see if I can do that. How you make the plug? They don't tell you. That's completely up to you. So let's see how this goes. So how to make this very thin puck when you don't have a little plastic beaker of the right size. Well, what I've done, and I'm not sure if this is going to work or not, so this is the old thru-hull, so I know this is the right size, and then I've wrapped some what's it called, peel ply around it, tightened up with a cable tie just so I could pull everything tight. Then I've sort of put some double-sided tape around there so it would stick to the peel ply and onto itself. Onto that double-sided tape I've then also put some plastic which I got from, well look, let's be honest about this. You know that all of my DIY products start with some sort of easy to use food, so it's the old plastic container from one of these. I'm not advertising Tesco, by the way. They're a pretty rubbish supermarket, but cheap. And then on the outside of that I've just put some duct tape to keep things firm, and then I'm going to use underneath, I'm going to kind of glue on. It doesn't need to be absolutely fantastic because obviously I've got the peel ply. The bottom of the container, and the nice thing is I've got ages to do this job because it's got a best by date of 1st of August 2018, so that will kind of stick onto there. I'll try and pull everything off. Right, so here we are. I've made a mould for out of the larger through hole that I removed and the smaller ones to make this plug. I still don't know why these plugs are there. I'm going to try and figure this out, but I'm literally just following the instructions at the moment. So the next step is to pour in some epoxy after I've mixed it together, and then let it cure completely. Right, so what I've done is I've sanded these down to about 3-ish millimeters. I don't know if you can see it, but I've also sanded down just on the edges with 80 grit so that it will they will stick in better. I haven't done the middle because that will get ground out. I think you can see that here. So I've just sort of sanded it down. And the next thing I've got to do is to somehow sort of hold these in the middle of the gap, and the instructions just say hold them in place with duct tape, which, how do you, yeah, that just doesn't make sense. So what I've done is I've made a sort of spacer for each one, and I'm going to kind of put this underneath to kind of hold it up the right amount, and then after I've kind of wetted everything with the standard epoxy, I then use some mix in some 406 and then just put a bit around the side and then wait for it to dry and then get on with the grinding. That's how it goes in theory anyway. Let's see how it works. This was actually incredibly fiddly. I'd already put some filler inside the boat, and then I moved back down to the underneath, and everything was kind of slipping and sliding about, and then the little spacer thing that I'd made wasn't really big enough and it didn't stick onto the tape well. So in retrospect, if I was to do this bit again, I'd probably do it in 2 halves. I'd probably stick it somehow so that it was in the right position, do the inside, and then wait for that to set, and then afterwards do the outside. So, but I did them, and I did both holes at the same time. So as I say, this wasn't the easiest of ways of doing it, so I definitely wouldn't do it like this if I was to do the job again. Right, this one's alright-ish. This one's a little bit lopsided. The spacer wasn't quite big enough, but I'll grind these down on the outside and then grind them down to a specified circle size and see how that looks. Right, so this is, I don't know, clearly you can see this actually. Right, so this is sanded down, and that's about 3 millimeters lower than this. It took ages, but done them both. Done the insides as well. Alright, so the first thing to do is to wet it out. And this is just the epoxy mix. Of course I've acetoned it, sanded it. Now some people seem to miss this out, but this is some 406 filler mixed with epoxy, which is supposedly just kind of fill a few gaps and give you a better surface. Right, the other thing I looked at, is different people seem to have different ideas on this. So this is very badly drawn, but these red lines basically represent the layers of fiberglass. And there seem to be two different ways of doing this. Obviously you cut several concentric circles of fiberglass getting bigger and bigger. Most people seem to put the smallest one on first. A lot of people don't use the plug obviously, but put the smallest one first, then get bigger and bigger. On all the manufacturing websites that I've seen, they advocate doing it the other way around, where you put the largest one on first, so it kind of follows this curve, and then slightly smaller and smaller, so you kind of get these bits stuck up. Now the rationale that I've seen for doing it this way is that you're not going to get water ingress between the layers and delamination. The rationale I've seen for doing it this way from the manufacturers is that the weakest link is actually the physical bond at this level. All the rest of these are chemical bonds, and they're not particularly worried about water getting in here. So the physical bond is the weakest layer, therefore what you want to do is to have the largest possible surface area for this, hence the chamfering and so on. So I'm going to do it this way, but I'd be very interested in comments on all of this. As I say, don't copy me, but never copy me on anything. That's just a sensible philosophy of life, right? So anyway, I'm going to have a go at doing it that way. Okay, so this is where you get the carefully pre-cut circles. Centre that nicely. And finally, lovely peel ply. So it's difficult to see, but that looks relatively flat. That seems to have been 6 layers of 450, seems to have been just about right there. And here's one I did earlier. This was actually 5 layers of 450, and that seems to be, it's not perfect, but based on what I normally do, it's not bad. Right, it's had more than a couple of days. I missed bits which you'd have seen when I put this on. I really should have done 2 lots of this, so I've washed this out with hot soapy water to get rid of the amine blush, which is the unwanted byproduct of this, and now it's the time to peel the peel ply. Very satisfying. And I'm not going to touch this because that will not need sanding. These 2 bits will. And then it's skim over the top with some 407 filler. Right, so this is the 407 mix to what they call peanut butter consistency, so it'll more or less hang like that. And slop some of this on. I've pre-wetted it, by the way, and then it goes tacky. Whoops. Lost a bit. Right, the idea of this is that it's kind of bendy. I think it's a wallpapery thing, but we shall see. Right, pretty much all the guides say don't try and do it all in one coat. I've let this go uber tacky, and now I'm going to put on a second coat. And you know what, I'm going to leave it at that. Alright, so I've taken the tape off, and that is standing proud a little bit, but it's difficult to tell on the video, particularly this awful camera. It's pretty much rounded to the shape of the hull, and then I've taken it out so far, and I'm going to kind of feather that when I sand it, and then it's going to get a coat of epoxy to kind of waterproof it, because these are micro bubbles, they call them, like miniature ping pong balls, so they do need a coat of epoxy. I'll put some epoxy and whitener on that, and then it gets painted over several coats. I'm not going to gel coat it. I might do some gel coating on the upper surfaces, but let's let that dry and take it from there. Relatively happy with that so far. Unfortunately I've run out of material, so I can't do the other one, but probably best to do one at a time anyway. So there we go, all sanded down, feathered out the edges, and bendy sticks check the curvature. It's not perfect, but it's better than I thought I could do. So the next stage is just tape it up and then paint it with epoxy with whitener. Alright, so here's some 501 white pigment. Not quite sure why to use this. I think it makes the sanding easier because it's not UV resistant. It's certainly not a substitute for gel coat. But I mixed up some epoxy. And I need to put in a daub. No idea how much. That much? Yeah, looks about right. And the thing is, you do have to put some epoxy on anyway, because this is slightly water permeable because of the type of micro beads, which are actually hollow like little ping pong balls, so you'd need to put some epoxy on it anyway. So it's really, I think, just a question of painting it. So there we go. I'm sure you're bored of looking at this spot now, so I'm just going to take the tape off, let it dry. That's all I'm going to cover on doing this. We'll have a little bit of a wrap up, and then that's it. You can get back to doing something normal. So that was a bit of a marathon, wasn't it? If you've stayed up to this point, well done. As I say, I'm not telling anybody how to do it. I haven't sort of covered in depth how to mix the epoxy, or particularly what materials I've used. I've kind of mentioned them as I've gone along. I did use 450 biaxial tape. I used the 406 colloidal silica for sort of the filling work when I put the little pucks in, and I used 407 for the filling. But you can get this information everywhere else. I really just wanted to show what I did and welcome any comments, things you think I might have done wrong, because if somebody watches this, I don't want them to copy it and make my mistakes. So if you are watching this thinking of doing it, read the comments below if there are any and don't cover the mistakes. Things I would have done differently with the pucks, and I still don't know, so I'm very interested why I needed that puck. With the puck, when I made it from the through hull, what I would have done is make the pucks a little bit bigger. And I think if I'd have wrapped a few bits of tape to make this a millimetre bigger, because you sand them down, they were a little bit loose, and I think it would be a lot easier if they were just an interference fit, which is what it kind of says on the instructions. But it does talk about taping them in. As I say, I'll leave the instructions that I've followed below. Most useful tool is this thing. It's a rubber, I don't know, wallpapery thing, and it bends, and you can really subtly make the shape of the hull. So for doing the fairing, this was excellent. And I think I can put the fairing compound on even better. Anyway, I managed to get another one out in August, and let's see what happens next time. There's a few other projects. I'm still quite keen on doing the hull integrity. Obviously I'll finish off what I've done here, and then maybe move on and do some work on the keel. Don't know. Let's see. All the port lights, they need doing. So let's see what happens next time. See you then. Bye.